She stood at the edge of the cliff, the wind tugging at her scarf like an impatient child. The winter sky was a silent witness, smeared with bruises of grey and violet. Alara had spent 36 years on this earth, and yet she felt like a stranger in her own life. She held no answers, only questions. Questions that sounded like footsteps in an empty hallway, constantly echoing. Her hands trembled as she pressed them into her coat pockets, pulling the fabric tighter against her chest. This was meant to be it, the place where clarity would strike her like lightning. Go to the forest hills, they had told her, the women at the retreat center. Find the cliff on the eastern ridge. You'll understand everything when you're there. Alara thought their voices sounded too wrapped in mystery, like they carried truths far above her reach. Her life had been mapped out precisely, albeit without joy. She was a project manager by trade, organizing deadlines and boxes into neat little grids. Her apartment was filled with muted tones and furniture whose corners matched perfectly with the walls. She had survived heartaches through routine, coating herself layer upon layer with plans, with purpose, with things that didn't ask her to feel too much or dive too deeply. And yet, there she was, on the cliff that demanded she confront all of it. Something had broken inside 8 months earlier. She had lost her father to cardiac arrest, a sudden absence so sharp it had left her winded for weeks. She wasn't close to him, not truly. He'd been a man of few words, filled instead with moments where silence carried unbearable weight. But in losing him, something cracked open inside her, a bleeding wound that couldn't be patched by neatly folded calendars. That void had whispered to her in the quiet moments, the ones where there was no work to drown herself in. It demanded attention, like hunger gnawing from the inside out. And so, she said yes to strange things, like the retreat center. She said yes to strangers who spoke of healing like dreams wrapped in silk. She said yes to seeking an answer, almost blindly, because doing nothing felt unbearable. She lowered herself onto the ridge slowly, boots grinding against the rocky terrain. She felt foolish, her practical mind whispering taunts about mysticism and disappointment. She had driven 2 hours, paid money she didn't have, all because some stranger thought geography would heal her spirit. "Does this hill know what I'm looking for?" Alara muttered to no one, her breath visible in the biting cold. "Or does it get to watch me leave empty like the rest?" It was then that she saw him. A man turned the corner of the narrow trail leading up the ridge, hands tucked into fraying gloves, beard dusted with frost. He moved carefully, favoring his footing as if the hill had secrets he respected. His face carried no urgency, only the quiet expression of someone who knew how to listen to the earth. Alara wanted to look away, but the stranger had already seen her. "Not many people come out here in winter," he said simply as he approached, his voice rough around the edges, like gravel scraped against bark. "You've got a reason." Alara froze. What was this? A random quiz? Fate testing her like she wasn't exhausted enough. She started to speak, her fingers nervously twisting the fabric of her scarf. "I don't know," she confessed, the uncertainty in her voice as tangible as the chill in the air. "They said I'd find something here. I forgot to pay your electricity kind of search, you know. Aimless." He stopped about 3 feet from her, the space between them taut with questions unspoken. He tilted his head as if to measure her words, decipher her meaning. His eyes reminded her of driftwood, old, weathered, but strangely soft. "And do you want to find something?" he asked, his voice slower now, probing yet patient. She hesitated. Did she? Or did she just want the ache inside to stop? "I guess I want to know why this hurts so much." Her voice, though quiet, carried the weight of her unspoken turmoil. The man smiled faintly, shaking his head as if he'd heard her kind before, his demeanor suggesting a well of shared human experience. "People come here hoping for full answers, but most don't ask the real question yet." "And what exactly is the real question?" Alara countered, skepticism dripping from her tone. He stepped past her, planting himself directly on the rough ground near the edge. "Don't think about the answers. Think about the pain. No answers until you let yourself see the truth of that first." She stared. The truth of the pain. What did that even mean? She wanted results, a resolution, a meaning, comforting words wrapped neatly in ribbon. "I should go," she muttered, turning away. "You can't outrun it," he said bluntly behind her. The force of his voice stopped her mid-step. "You can distract yourself as many times as you want, with work, with people, with hobbies, but it's still there." Alara looked down at her boots. This was all wrong. This wasn't clarity. This wasn't peace. It was discomfort growing louder, refusing her a way out. "You're angry," the man added, still calm. "Angry that your father didn't leave what you expected. Answers, love, closure. You're blaming yourself for surviving in cold silence. But none of it was ever yours to carry. You built those walls because you didn't know if the pain could be borne alone. But you're stronger than you think." The air felt sharper, heavier. The stranger's words settled into her like seeds planted without asking permission. Alara didn't reply. Couldn't. Because what would she say? That he was wrong? That her father hadn't fractured a piece of her heart before leaving? She felt it now. The dam she had built was swelling, cracking, and then it broke. She didn't know when the tears started falling, only that they refused her control. Her knees gave out, folding gently onto rock. She gripped the scarf still tied tightly to her body. The cry wasn't delicate. It was raw, jarring, the kind with years inside it. Alara's vision blurred, her cheeks slick against the biting wind. When she finally caught her breath, the stranger hadn't moved. She began, voice shaky. "I don't know where this goes, or how to hold it." "There is no map for healing," he said simply. "Only steps forward, and backward, and forward again. Pain isn't something that can be conquered like an enemy. It's a tide that learns to move with you." Alara wiped her face messily, looking toward the vast horizon of trees and hills stretching endlessly before her. The earth was quiet, waiting. "I've spent so long running from it," she said, voice breaking. "What if I keep running?" His smile returned gently, like something patient and reassuring. "You've already stopped. That's what matters. The rest is walking, sometimes slowly, sometimes fast. Maybe you'll visit places like this again, maybe you won't, but you'll feel life again, if you let yourself." The man gave her no promises, no miraculous formula for immediate healing, and yet his calm felt contagious, the quiet kind born out of knowing the struggle firsthand. Alara closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, felt the air like weight pressing against her chest. She stayed there alone on the ridge long after the stranger departed. When she left the cliff behind, her grief wasn't gone. But something had shifted, like cracks letting light pour through. She didn't hold answers yet, but she didn't need them immediately. Healing was not a destination. It was movement itself, whether slow or fast, forward or backward. And that was the lesson she carried quietly in her heart. The pain doesn't define you. Facing it moment by moment lets you honor the process that does.